Thank you. We talked about this yesterday. What we're trying to do is get some funding for our response to the COVID-19 or the coronavirus. What this amendment would do would be to put $2 million of money into the Public Health Emergency Response Fund under the Governor's Civil Contingency Fund. It would take it from the Medical Services appropriation. You all know that I have wailed against using Medicaid money for any other reason than federal match, but this is extraordinary times. And I've been told that this $2 million will help in the planning, education, messaging. It will make a difference. Our response will be more robust than it would have been. And will result in better and faster communications and education and help get out in front of this more robustly. It will support broader and faster advanced planning with a wider range and array of partners, and will build a stronger system for public health responses in the future. Many of you all know that this coronavirus is now in many, many countries. It's in the United States. It's still mostly spread, by travel. However, person-to-person spread is also happening. According to the paper this morning, there's about 60 cases in the United States. And I saw a map last night on the evening news that showed it's in about 6 or 7 different states. The people at the CDC say that it's more contagious than we once thought. It is a respiratory virus, so by coughing and things like that, it gets the droplets out there, and that's why we need to plan for this. The U.S. spread is inevitable, according to the CDC. So the federal government is putting out money, but this money won't be in West Virginia until after the fact. Our neighbor Maryland is trying to get $10 million, and we know that this is a very tight budget year. I think this $2 million is a good start. And again, as far as educating the public as to what we need to do to make plans with regard to what we do when you get sick. It's not necessarily run to the ER. I think the Junior Center from the 17th might talk a little bit more about this with regard to what some of our hospitals are talking about. Again, whether, we might have to deal with school closing, so we need to deal with the education system. We might have to try to work from home to avoid the person-to-person contact. So I appreciate the bipartisanship with this public health funding to make our response more robust. Urge adoption.
Thank you. Further discussion. Recognize Senator from Raleigh County.
Yes, sir. Would the senator from Boone please yield?
Senator yields. Senator does yield.
I think it is very prudent for us to do such a thing, and your explanation was excellent. However, I have one concern that maybe we've left a door open that we don't intend to, and that is on line 34, page 2. The description of this fund is not what you just described. It says the above fund is intended to provide contingency funding for accidental, unanticipated, emergency, or unplanned events. That's pretty widespread, and it is way beyond the description of coronavirus. I have great concern because I don't have confidence that the executive branch will not take advantage of that kind of wording. So could you give us an explanation of why that wording is like that?
Frankly, if we could have, it's the budget bill, and we tried to establish a fund that actually would be separate from the governor's contingency fund, but by being this late in the process here, we were unable to do it. So we are trying to call this the Public Health Emergency Response Fund. We can't, via statute, at this late date, make that happen. It is certainly the intent of the DHHR to use this money only for public health emergency responses. We can come back. Yeah, again, this is general. What you read is the general wherewithal of the governor's contingency fund. We couldn't change that in the budget bill. This is something we can come back in another time and carve out this particular fund.
Okay. Is that something you would be in favor of doing?
I would, and again, I wanted to anyway, but again, we're just trying to get the money in a place that it could be used for education for the coronavirus.
Well, again, I say that it is a prudent situation to establish, but I'm concerned that it can go other directions like a lot of things do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there other members? The senior senator from the 15th seeks recognition.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this amendment, but I wanted to weigh in on the conversation that just took place between the senator from Raleigh and the senator from Boone. The senator from Raleigh is absolutely right that the language is a little bit wide, but it was late in the game on that. But, Mr. President, one of the things that your Finance Committee now does is that when we allocate money, we monitor what happens throughout the rest of the year. I'm down here just about every 2 weeks keeping my eye on it. And when we were talking about doing this amendment, I reached out to the senator of the Boone, the senator from the majority leader, the senator from Kanawha, to be able to help with this, to make sure that this money is going to be used appropriately for what it was intended to do, to be able to protect this virus. And and let's just say that this virus goes away and everything, that this money would not go out unless it's for preparedness on that. And there's another thing to it, that we pulled it out of Medicaid. And the reason is the Medicaid budget is so large that we can come back in at the end of it and do a supplement if necessary. That's the point of why we pulled it out of there. But it is a good thing for our state to get prepared if this virus is coming and we got school closings or even here. I know some of us here have been nervous about just a normal flu coming through. Many people's been sick this year. If we got something that was catastrophic for us, we need to be able to reach out to our people and use the resources that we have effectively. This actually helps with that. And again, I'm a fiscal hawk. I don't know what better way to put it than that. But we also have to be able to look out for the people. $2 million is a small amount of money when you're looking at the scope of dealing with 1.8 million people. In fact, it comes out to $1.11 for each person in this state that when we're doing this to look out for them. So the senator from Raleigh has a good point, but rest assured that we got our eyes on this, all of us, and he'd be welcome to join us on being able to keep a close eye on this.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Recognize junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just rise in support of the amendment. Whether it be this virus or another virus, I mean, we've had several close misses here in just recent years with Ebola a few years ago, with SARS virus about a decade or so ago. So the fact of the matter is, we're just the world's gotten to be much smaller, and so with transit and people moving to and fro, we're going to face these more often than we really want. And so the treatment or the way we keep West Virginia safe is really just containment. You know, in some instances, the mountains are harmful to us. You know, we don't have a lot of flat land, so economically it's hard to maybe do as many things as we can as compared to our neighbors, but in other instances it does provide us some protection. So when you look at, for example, avian outbreaks and stuff with the chickens and turkeys and all that kind of stuff, you don't see those outbreaks quite in West Virginia because the mountains shield us some from that. But the problem is when people do travel through those mountains, and when they do and they bring those viruses in here, we have to act, and we have to act quickly. You don't have time to convene. You don't have time to try to come up with a plan. Then a plan has to be in place. And so the last thing you want is for people showing up in your hospitals if the coronavirus does hit West Virginia, which is a very real possibility. Once that person, for example, is sitting in the ER and they've coughed and hacked for a couple of days, currently, the only way we have to even test for this thing is at the state lab. State lab's not necessarily open on nights. It's not open on weekends. We got to have an action plan where the kits are available. They're in the ERs. In fact, I think an action plan probably needs to take place where we have testing facilities not in our hospitals but in localities around the state, so that but we have to be able to have the money, the funds to quickly message this. We have to have the ability to tell the folks to get and what they need to do, what they need to be take precautions for, and where to get tested. Right now, I don't think this is really set up, and so this fund, if it just so happens that the coronavirus hits us, will provide for those things, and it provides for us to contain this and hopefully protect and save a lot of West Virginians. Again, if it doesn't, if we're lucky and God willing, we're saved, and we don't have to spend any of this. So I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? Senator wish to close debate? Senators recognized to close debate.
Just briefly, Mr. President, Senate Finance Chairman did make a good point in that there will be money pushed out from the CDC, the federal government. There is a possibility that this money could even be reimbursed with federal money. That's how the system tends to work. There is a robust data monitoring from the Commissioner of Public Health. They dot all their I's and cross all their T's with regard to how this money is spent. And with that in mind, we may even get reimbursement from the federal government. Urge adoption.
Question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment as explained by the senator from Boone County. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted.